Okay, welcome back. Well, as a carry on from my last video, there were two aeroplanes actually that sprang up from the demise of the biplane to the beginning of the monoplanes that were actually really good aeroplanes, but they were borderline. They didn't really make it successfully, but they were borderline. One was the Hawker Hurricane, designed by Sidney Cam, and this was a biplane which had been modified into a monoplane. Nice wide undercarriage, self-centering pneumatic tailwheel, as I said. Really good aeroplane. Really good aeroplane. But it never really went like the Spitfire, because the Spitfire was faster. They dumped the Hurricane in favour of the Spitfire because it was like 60 miles an hour faster, and when you want a fighter aeroplane, I mean, that is everything. Speed is everything. Now, the Germans had the Me108. It was designed by Messerschmitt, obviously, but he didn't have any money to design a fighter for the Luftwaffe, so what he did is he designed the Messerschmitt 108. I've got one up on the screen. I'll just show you briefly what a 108 is. That's the 108. Looks very similar to a 109, but it's a four-seater. It's an all-metal four-seater touring aeroplane, and it's years ahead of its time. I mean, that's the sort of thing people have got today, like the Cessna 172, four-seat tourer, fantastic. And this was a successful aeroplane. But because it was a four-seater, the fuselage was wider. And Messerschmitt had this idea where if he attached the undercarriage legs to the bottom of the fuselage, then you could take the wings off in maintenance, and you could transport it, and it would stand freestanding on its own, the fuselage. Now that's a good idea in theory, and that's where Supermarine went wrong, because I think they copied that idea. So they'd already perfected the aircraft, but they were just looking at undercarriages and they thought, oh, this is what the Germans are doing. The Germans have got, and this is the mistake that they made. However, the 108, the fuselage was just that bit wider because it was a two-seater. Now, when they upgraded it to the 109, they made the fuselage narrower, which meant that the wheels were narrower and the engine was bigger, and that's where all the problems came in, because the 108 is fantastic. I've flown the 108 in VR, and what a nice aeroplane it is. If they'd have just put the bigger engine in it and left it as it was, I think that would have been a fabulous aeroplane. Don't know if the weight and balance would be okay, but I'm sure they could play around with that. But yeah, everything pretty much he designed. They even used the 108 in loads of World War II films as pretending to be a 109, because they look the same. I mean, everything is the same. The wings, the tail, everything. You know, it looks like a 109 from a distance. But yeah, I think definitely if they'd have put a bigger engine in that and left it as a four-seater. But that's not what they wanted. The Luftwaffe wanted something looking mean and horrible. And I mean, can you imagine a fighter with like two seats side by side? Why not? Would have been a much more successful aircraft, and they wouldn't have lost as many of them, because it was a better aeroplane than the 109. And they struggled. They had slots on the wings. They had locking tail wheels. They did all kinds. And let's face it, there was more 109s out there than there was anything else. And the 109s had the biggest, highest kill ratio. There's more aces flying 109s than anything else. But that's because there was more of them, and they were in combat with everybody, all over. But the 109 and the Spitfire, I would say the Spitfire was better than the 109, and I'm not being biased because I'm British. I should be, but I'm not. I'm genuinely looking at the two aircraft, I've flown the two aircraft, and in VR, and I would say that there's a lot of positives to the 109, but they never really worked, did they? You know, I don't like it. I don't like it, and I don't like the Spitfire. I'm not dissing the Spitfire. There's a lot of Spitfire and 109 enthusiasts out there. They are, without doubt, in my opinion, the most difficult aircraft to handle, both on the ground and in takeoff and in landing, for sure. Both of them are alright when you get them in the air, although the 109 doesn't handle as well as a Spitfire. I find if you honk it around quite tight in the circuit, you'll stall a wing and you'll crash, and that's the end of you, because it just doesn't fly as well as a Spitfire. The Spitfire flies way better, way better. In fact, the Germans actually captured a Spitfire during the war. Guy landed it, and before he could self-destruct it, they caught him, and they captured the Spitfire. They took it off for evaluation. We did the same with captured enemy aircraft, and they sent it off. They performed it, because they do the climb test, they do all kinds of tests, and they work out how good and how bad your aircraft is. They can evaluate, so they can look at tactics for the future. Anyway, they pulled the engine out, the Merlin engine, and they put a Daimler-Benz Messerschmitt 109 engine in the Spitfire, and it was, whoa, it seriously outperformed the Spitfire even. So there's the better combination, was the Spitfire with the 109 engine, because it was obviously a much better engine. But it's all in the past, and like I said, even the brakes, they didn't have, the Spitfire and the Hurricane didn't have toe brakes. They had the differential braking, air compressor. There's a little brake lever that you had to squeeze and push the rudder pedal in to get a bit of differential braking. Nightmare. So, I'm heavily in favour of a mod for toe brakes on Spitfires, the ones that they've got left before they crash them all. But I would never fly a real Spitfire, because I'd have to be a multi-millionaire to buy one, and I wouldn't want to break it. I would hate to be the man who broke a Spitfire. Look at the guy who crashed Black 6. I don't think it was his fault. I think he had an engine overheating coolant problem, but he nosed it over, didn't he, and broke the back. And that came from Tobruk, and I'd hate to be the pilot that crashed one of the few iconic aircraft from World War II that we've got left. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'll stick to VR. Thank you very much.